All right, so we're going to talk all about pricing. Now, pricing your coaching packages, your services. I see this as one of the places that energy, especially unconscious shadow, loves to play and loves to hide. And one of the things that I know a lot of coaches do is they go into comparisonitis. What's everybody else charging? What can the market handle? What's the economy doing? And we start to set our pricing and our packages based on everything outside of ourselves. And when the energy is scattered out there and we're looking for validation and confirmation and all of the things that will tell us that our pricing is hitting the mark, or even where we're setting our pricing based on what is happening in our sales conversations. Ooh, my conversions are really low. Maybe my pricing is too high. How many times have you had a thought like that about your pricing? How many of you have determined your pricing based on thinking like that? It's completely normal. It's exactly what we default to because we don't know any other way to price our services and packages. And we take all of this feedback from the external world and create story and meaning and interpretation around it, and then determine our pricing based on all that out there. And the wild thing about determining our pricing and packaging based on all the information we're receiving from the field is that it's always changing. So then we feel a little bit like a crazy person because one day we think we're too low and the next day we think we're too high. And then we see some other coach charging 800 times more than we're charging. And then we start to feel self-doubt. So the second that we even abdicate and give power and responsibility to a very personal choice for ourselves, to things outside of ourselves, especially to clients who are saying no, ew, we are compromising our entire integrity and alignment with what we are here to do and the value and worth that it is holding. So, what we are really wanting to activate and lock in for you today is how to set your pricing in alignment with you and what is true for you and where you're at in your self-worth journey and where you're at in your confidence journey. Because at the end of the day, pricing, just like everything else in our business, comes down to energy. And when you are holding confidence, value, worth, knowing of the transformation and the deep work that you're doing with your clients and the impact that it has on their life, not just in the coaching partnership, but for the rest of their life, when you own that, when you know that, pricing becomes easier, because you know what feels resonant with the truth of who you are. So the true work is around our own self-worth. Now, this sounds super cliche and, oh yeah, charge what you're worth and all of that. That's not the path that I really want to go down today. I want to go down how we're already making choices that perpetuate our leaky worthiness. And when I say leaky worthiness, even if you're somebody who has a very healthy concept of your self-worth and your value, there's a lot of times still leakiness because we get feedback again from the field that then have us question what we knew to be true. We get into a forgotten state. We forget that value and that worth, especially if you're going into conversations and receiving a lot of people saying, I can't afford it, or no. Which I'm going to get into all that too, because there's ways to completely eradicate those types of objections when you are standing in full alignment with your pricing. Those objections don't come up. I already alluded to this. The pricing always starts and ends with you and your desire. Desire is the catalyst for everything that we're creating. Desire is the thing that launches us into the next version of ourselves that creates something in our business that has never been created before. Desire is the thing that pulls us along a path of growth and refinement. When I say refinement, it's the path that brings us into alignment with the desire, which means the refinement process is usually where the shit hits the fan, we feel uncomfortable, we get lots of contrast in our field, it feels like we're going backwards instead of forward, but all of that happens as a way to refine our energy and our frequency to align us to the desire, because once you are aligned to the desire, it must manifest. This is like universal law. And so it's like when we go into the pricing side of things, and I'll get into deeper this desire, but let's say that you have a desire to charge a certain amount because it fully aligns with the lifestyle that you want to create and the level and how many clients you want in your field and how much revenue you want to be creating and for the specific purposes you want to create it for that are conscious and aligned with your truth and your values and all of that. But let's say that you establish that and you're not quite there yet, that there's leakiness in your worth. You're automatically going to be catapulted into situations that create contrast. Then when that happens, what we end up doing is a lot of times we go back to our comfort zone and we say, oh, maybe that's too much. Maybe I'm overshooting. Maybe I should just be grateful for what I have. Maybe I should lower my pricing. And you start to go into this forgotten state, not realizing that you're just being refined to come into alignment. But the second that you read into the contrast that is happening, then you are pulling yourself out of the refinement process and just going back to where you started. So this is a big like zig-zaggy game that we play with ourselves. And why I love talking about it with pricing is that you might, after today's masterclass, step into up-leveling your pricing in some way, shape, or form, only to realize it's going to throw you into contrast. And then you might feel this very strong urge to go back to your original pricing that was easier and more comfortable and more stable. But what you're depriving yourself of is the ability to refine to a new reality. So we don't get the new reality without the contrast and this refinement process that happens in between. So my hope for all of you is that you start to stretch in your pricing, not because you need to make more money, but because you can if you choose to. And especially you can if you have places to land additional revenue in your life that makes your life feel juicy and delicious and whole, and you're already whole and complete. So it just adds, it amplifies your values. It just brings things into a new experience that you get to have, and you get to use the money as a tool to do that. Okay, I'm going all over the place here, but I want to come back to that at the end of the day, the pricing is established for you and for your desires. I say over and over again that anything that your heart truly desires, it desires it because I believe that these desires were put in your heart, the things that you really want, the life, this human life experience that you really want to be having, maybe your physical material heaven on earth. Those desires were put in our heart. Oh gosh, I guess I'm just going to channel this a little bit. Those desires were put in our heart at like the inception of us coming into being, and they were put there to bring us along this refinement and growth process. And so they are already meant for you. They are a part of your journey. They are a part of your soul's journey. So first and foremost, we have to get really clear. What do you really want? How much money do you really want to make? Not just because it's some superficial milestone like 6 figures or 7 figures or multiple 6 figures, but how much money do you really want to make to live the fullest life that you can possibly live in this moment? That is just for you to be in your fullest expression, to be fully nourished and be able to serve from your overflow. That's the kind of revenue we're talking about. That's creating conscious wealth in your business. So first and foremost, your pricing starts with you. How much money do you want to make? And what does life look like when you are operating at this place? How many clients are you really working with? And how many sales calls are you really having? And how much visibility and where are you being visible that you really want to be? And so again, you start to now look at it. Now you're looking at it through this emotional lens of desire. And then from the emotional lens, we can start getting logical. So again, we get to now go and say, gosh, you know, what feels really powerful for me is to work with only a small handful of clients. And I have this desire to have a $300,000 business. What would that look like? Now we get to logically start to map some of these things out, and you're going to start feeling a disconnect likely from where you are to the future version of yourself. It's going to feel like that doesn't feel possible maybe, or it's going to feel like, holy crap, I'd have to charge people $50,000 to work with me. I don't think that's doable. But again, remember, you have a very specific desire for a very specific reason. Anything is possible. Absolutely anything is possible. And it's just coming into alignment with the desire, and it must manifest. And that means sticking it out through the fire of refinement, through the pressure on the diamond, through the depth of the contrast that feels very uncomfortable to get the growth and the shift and the transformation that brings you into the alignment with the desire. Or just go back and play it safe and live your, again, no judgment, but these are the choices that we're making when we're choosing our pricing, which again is why I want to talk about this, because it's such a catalyst in so many ways, or it's so representative of a really cool understanding of your co-creation process. And so we can either understand that this is the process and we can use pricing and stretching our pricing as a tool from what we internally desire, not what the external economy or clients or people are telling us. And then we can go in that direction and create a new reality and work with a different type of client and create another level of financial freedom and abundance that's in alignment with your values. Or we can start heading that contrast and say, actually, I feel safer just charging $200 an hour, and that's plenty, and that gives me a nice life. It's okay to go to that place, but it's recognizing you're choosing mediocrity. And anything you do fearlessly, you're doing in mediocrity. And if that is the decision that we are deciding to step into, that's perfectly okay, but let's call a spade a spade. It means you're playing small. It means you're leaving your gifts on the table. It means you're not playing full out. Again, perfectly okay, but these are the choices that we're playing with. Contrast through refinement or just good enough. And just good enough, I don't know. I'm guessing not a single one of you who are choosing to be in this space right now with me are going for just good enough. You know that you have incredible spiritual gifts, talents, transformational contributions to make to this world, real impact, and really wanting to be fully compensated for that impact and to create that circulation of money and revenue around the world because of your work, because you know you are here for impact and you know you are here to make a difference and you know you have a message that shifts people and you know you have something that is calling in this new paradigm of living and experiencing and shifting consciousness and evolving consciousness. You are here because you know that you are a player in that game, which means, I'm sorry, but your soul already chose this other path. So you could still go against it because you have free will, but you will never feel fully fulfilled or satisfied if you do. So that's where we want to play today, is owning the true desire of what you have. You get to create on a blank canvas, and you get to logically take a look at the numbers, and you get to say, oh shit, I don't know how that's possible. How in the world could I only work with 3 clients and still make $300,000? Let me tell you this. Let me tell you this. There are clients for every price point that you can ever imagine. There have been clients in my business at the $300 a month price point when I first started out, $600, $1,200, $2,500 a month, $4,000 a month, $20,000 for 6 months, $10,000 for 6 months in a group with 25 more people. There are clients for every price point you can conceive. My mentor, he's got a price point of $500,000 a year for private coaching for some of his clients. Sometimes it's $250,000. There's other coaches in the industry, same thing. Now, again, I don't want to oversimplify this, but first and foremost, there is nothing that you can conceive that doesn't already exist and isn't already possible. And are there a bunch of refinements that you'd likely be stepping into from a oh my gosh, from a wild abandon in your messaging, from a truly standing in the power and the confidence of your gifts, to the owning the transformation that clients experience because you're a catalyst for that? Like, yeah, the refinement process is real. Like, it is real on multiple levels. And so if any of you have the yeah, but going on, yeah, but that works for business coaches because they have an inherent ROI, or yeah, but those are all excuses. Those are the things that are pulling you back into your mediocrity, as opposed to owning and recognizing that's you being in refinement. All of those excuses is the contrast of you being in refinement and deciding to abandon your belief in yourself and what is possible and the impact that you are here to make, instead of saying, so what? So what? I'll create something new. I'm going to defy this belief. I'm going to show that anything is possible because I believe anything is possible. I don't know how yet. I don't know how long it's going to take. I don't know how much contrast I'm going to have to face. I don't know how many fires I'm going to have to go through. I don't know how many times I'm going to have to burn stuff down and rebuild it. But by golly, if this is my desire and this is the level of coaching that I want to play in with my clients, then I am going to go through that fire and receive it. Okay. Let me just check in. I'm going to take pause. That's the first big message. Establish your pricing based on you and only you and your desire. This refinement process is, most people are so dependent on external feedback in their decision-making process, most coaches. And we're iterating everything in private, meaning we're thinking about our pricing and our packaging, and we're crunching the numbers, and we're doing everything in private, as opposed to just like getting out there and making the invitations and making the offers and then seeing how they feel and being like, ooh, that didn't feel quite resonant, or ooh, that didn't feel quite in alignment. Let me try something else. And the other thing I want to say about pricing is it's meant to be fluid and flexible. So I have increased pricing. So a lot of times people think that you're just going to increase and increase. I have increased pricing. I have decreased pricing, and not based on supply and demand, or not based on any external feedback, just intuitively. What felt good in my body, what felt right for me. And sometimes it's increased because I realize after the fact, because you can only connect the dots looking backwards, that I was buying more spaciousness in my calendar because I had a creative impulse that wanted to come through without compromising my revenue. And other times I've found, after I look back, connect the dots looking backwards, I was called to decrease my pricing because I was called into more client interaction. I actually was having the capacity to work with more clients, and that was meant to fill my space and my time. And so we never really know, but the pricing is meant to be fluid. The key is when you're truly in tune with what you want, or you're receiving the higher guidance, because you might not always know what you want. A lot of times the pricing that I'm establishing doesn't make any logical sense. It's truly intuitive based on a season that I'm in my business. And so one of the big transitions that I'm in the middle of right now is, for the last number of years, I worked on a retainer only model. And the whole philosophy was, I really wanted to, and now I'm understanding, connecting the dots looking backwards, retainer model meant I didn't have any long-term contracts. Every client could come and go exactly as they pleased. There was no like 30-day notice, nothing like weird in any contracts. Everything was month to month, moment by moment. And originally, when I'd been called to step into that for the last few years, it was, now I'm understanding this deeper level of trust in the process. It was me surrendering more into this true belief that is the truth of who I am, that the perfect and right amount of financial resource and clients is always available to me, never more, never less. Anything that I desire, the financial abundance will be provided for. So that whole act for those 3 years was me stepping into and owning the trust and knowing that I was feeling. So I was putting the action behind a new belief framework that I'd never held before in my business. I had held that old paradigm that I was taught, package and price, because then your business is more sustainable. The longer term packages, the more financially viable your business is. Like all of these rules, I decided to flip on their head and say, no, I'm going to go to a month-to-month retainer model, despite everything that all my mentors and everybody would tell me to do. You're making your business unstable and you're not going to have any consistency. Actually, I had more consistency when I made that choice in alignment. So this is a perfect example of making choices in alignment with you, not based on what they say, so that you can feel some false sense of safety and security in your business. Because the truth of the matter is that, honestly, even if you had a client locked into a 6-month or a 12-month contract, and they said that they were complete, and you also knew that they were complete, or they said something came up that they had to pull out of the contract, are you actually going to hold them to that contract? Are you going to take them to court and sue them? We're heart-centered entrepreneurs. We're not really operating in that frame anyway. So it's a total false sense of security. Now, that was the last 3 years. Now, right now, my business is in a phase where I'm redoing my entire model into long-term loyalty, spiral growth clients, meaning not just this shift and then we're complete. We're staying the long haul. We're going to be in the refinement process until you manifest some of the stretchiest desires that you can even fathom. So I'm shifting my model now because I'm called to partner with people through evolution. And then I'm also called to step into more cash infusion because I feel this urge to get my message out further and wider. I'm stepped into paid advertising. Movements take money. Before, my movement was really personal and quiet and really just focused on my one-on-one clients. And not that I was hiding, I just wasn't called to be out in this big visibility way. And now I'm in a season where I'm called to be out in a big visibility way. And that takes significant financial resource. So I'm called to rework my entire packaging and pricing based on what my heart is wanting to do in this season and in this moment. So I want to share that as an example. Like, it's all meant to be fluid. And when you can tap into your highest levels of consciousness, your intuition, your trust, your detachment, your desire, you're going to create the pricing and packaging that is a perfect match for the right clients that are meant to be working with you. Everything that we're experiencing from the field is a mirror to something that we haven't fully took ownership in for ourselves. So I mentioned earlier, I really don't get pricing objections. I get people, they never say, oh, I can't afford it. I shouldn't say never. But generally speaking, it's rare for me to get pricing objections. And if I do get pricing objections, it's a perfect mirror to me about where am I wobbly in my worth and how much I believe in the value of what I just offered. So I see everything that we're getting back from the external as just a mirror to our internal, because we didn't tap into the desire and really establish our pricing and our value and our worth from those higher levels of consciousness. And so what might be being mirrored back to you when people are telling you, I don't want what you have. I don't want what you have. Ooh, there it is. You don't have what I want. What you're offering me isn't enough. So what part inside of you might be unconsciously dealing with that maybe very old wound that now they're mirroring back to you? I don't want what you have. I want something else. I don't see the value in what you're offering. I see the value in this. So where then might there be not valuing yourself, your genius, your gifts, your own belief in your ability to facilitate transformation? Like, where is there some leakiness or some squishiness in that boundary and that knowing? Because it's those boundaries that we're bringing into our sales conversation that then anything we're getting externally is just a mirror. So this is also going to tie into why we're not going to depend on all of the external stuff, because it's just mirroring everything back to us. So now we're taking the external and still making it as though it's outside of us, as opposed to taking the mirror and saying, there's something inside of me that's creating this response. So again, if you're getting a lot of, I can't afford it, there's some part of you that doesn't believe in the price point that you're putting forward. There's a part of you that still believes it's too much, that it's not worth it, that people aren't going to see the value in it. So you're going to get a ton of objections. It's just a mirror. But when you are so solid and sovereign and set precisely in your own beliefs and embodiment of those beliefs, there's nothing for people to hook into. There's nothing for people to mirror back. So then what you receive is, here's what I get a lot. I'm not ready for this. I don't get, I can't afford it. I get, I don't think I'm ready for this, which is perfect, because you're holding a boundary that's calling in the readiness for transformation. And so that's energy self-organizing. It's not that my price is too much. It's they are taking responsibility for their own readiness. So they've already started shifting and in training to a new level of energy by taking radical responsibility for their own situation, as opposed to putting their situation on me as if I have the power and control whether or not they can claim their transformation. Okay, I just signed a client who listened to a podcast interview and felt like I was speaking directly to her. She did bat an eye at the cost. She was purely, yes, amazing, exactly that. You're in your expression, you're in your truth, you're in your knowing, you're in your authority, you're in your credibility. I call it sovereignty, I call it your warrior. Those are your archetypes, and it creates a magnet for perfect ready clients. Exactly like that. Oh, this is so cool. I had this drop in this morning and I didn't know for sure if it was for today, but now I know it is. So the message that dropped in this morning was all the coaches who think they got to target more affluent clients, and that affluent people are more willing to invest than middle class or even lower socioeconomic classes. And here's the truth. That's a bunch of bullshit, because it's not money that determines somebody's readiness to invest. It's their energy. Higher levels, this is audience energetics. And so when you step into and embody these higher energetics and you live them and you embody them and you implement them in your own life and your own business. So for example, if you're fucking terrified to invest, but you want other people to invest, there's a mismatch. You're not walking your talk. It's okay, but just recognize it, right? It's like everything is a mirror. And so the fastest way to overcome some of our own blocks about if we're charging too much is to go invest the same amount that we're wanting people to invest in coaching with us. Because if you're willing to, and if you believe, and I hear this all the time from clients, oh my gosh, just making into and stepping into this investment helped me realize if I'm willing to step into this investment, my clients can be willing to step into this investment. And I don't have $1 million in the bank, so they don't need to have $1 million in the bank, right? So you can see like it instantaneously creates almost a shift in a belief. Now, not that you're going to go just throw money at something that doesn't feel energetically resonant or aligned, but you don't get to have it both ways. You don't get to be one person who operates from fear and then expect your clients to step in with courage. It's not an energetic match. It can't happen that way. So I want to go back to, though, this affluence piece. So when I say it's an energetic, I've built a business with, again, if you have the desire, it is always possible, and it is never based on money. So I'm going to share a few different examples. The very first business that I built to just under 6 figures was with disadvantaged youth, kids whose families were on the lowest economic status in our entire community. And I built that business to probably $75,000, $80,000 in the very first year. They couldn't pay, their families couldn't pay, but they received the transformation because in this case, there were grants available. And there were philanthropists who believed in the work that I was bringing forward. And there were schools that believed in it. So there was no money to be made directly from the client. So that's just an example of if you have the desire, there's always a way. That's the lowest economic status. From there, my business transitioned into the next 6-figure business I built was mostly with network marketing, stay-at-home moms, network marketers, and direct sellers. Some of the clients that stepped into $10,000 containers, $1,200 a month for 6 months or 12 months containers. I remember a couple clients in particular, they had such big dreams. They had such a desire to change the trajectory of their family's life financially, that one of them was living in a trailer without a pot to piss in, literally, and she was called, no hard pressure sales, nothing, but she believed in her dreams so fully that she was willing to find a way, even though she didn't have anything. Wouldn't you know it? She did find a way. I don't know how she did it, but she found a way. I don't know if she reached out to family and asked for a loan, or I don't know, but she believed in herself enough to not let her current financial reality be the determinant for her future financial reality. And there are many clients that have come from that place. Many 6-figure, multiple 6-figure businesses have been built from clients that technically couldn't afford it, but they had an energetic of belief in themselves that made them not risk averse, but risk embracing. And that belief in and of itself is what created the inevitable success and results on the back end. So they stacked their own deck before we even got started because they were coming in with an energetic that then the coaching relationship becomes about just reminding them about who they are, and they take the action and they take the responsibility and they have the confidence and they have the belief in their dream and their vision. Those are the clients that are fun to work with because we're attracting them in at that energy level. It has nothing to do with how much money they're making, nothing. And if it does, because, okay, I'll use this as another example. Our puppy was just spayed, and this isn't a great example, but I love seeing how money flows and how people make financial decisions. So we had to take her to the emergency vet on Sunday night, and the place is packed. And I'm thinking, and I just am like so curious, like, one, my heart breaks because I'm sure people are facing like the loss of their pets and all of this stuff. But when we got in there, her thing wasn't even that serious. But I went there just to buy peace of mind. Like, I just needed to know she was going to live through the night, and then we would take her to our vet in the morning. So that was like what I was investing in. Now, they came back with a quote for what, $3,000 to redo this surgery and to do all this stuff, but she was going to be fine overnight. $3,000. Now, how many people, no matter what their socioeconomic status, would find a way to pay $3,000 to save their pet? They would. They would, and people do it all the time. So I want to ixnay that whole belief that how much money people make determines how much money you're going to make, because it's the biggest load of bullshit out there. And it's the stupidest, this sounds like judgment. Maybe it's not judgment. I'm just like trying to drive a point home. It's the silliest thing to believe in. It's the silliest thing to believe in, because it's never about that. People are, and this is what I want you to believe about every single client or potential client that crosses your path. They are so resourceful. They are so smart. If they really want something, they will find a way. They have the tenacity, they have the courage, they have the willingness to go for their dream and to claim the transformation that they say they want so bad. That's what we're seeing people through the lens of. They are resourceful, they are powerful, they will find a way. It is on them 100%. And if they can't find the way, or they choose not to find the way right now, that's perfectly okay. But I know, like I know, and I believe with every single cell of my being and every single heartbeat that every person that comes into my container is wildly resourceful. And they will find a way. They will find a way if they want it bad enough, and if their soul is loud enough to believe in themselves. It has nothing to do with me and nothing to do with you, and everything to do with the person that you're talking to and their power. Okay. Oh, anonymous. I hear your thoughts aligned with quantum physics. Can you explain quantum phenomenon in simpler terms? There is a depth in what you say for sure. Apologies if I get it incorrect. No need to apologize. This is some, you know what? I'm just going to say, I don't have any, I shouldn't say I don't have any formal training, because I read a lot, I retain a lot. But then it just reorganizes in its own unique way. So all I can say to that statement, anonymous attendee, is it's less about the words and understanding the words that I'm saying, and it's more about the frequency and the energy that I'm saying them with. So I sometimes feel like when I say things, I make up words and I make up like I make up pathways and things that don't really make sense. And then I use a lot of different words to refer to a lot of the same thing. And I believe that I'm channeling. And so it really, like, I could be literally saying gibberish, and there would be something happening energetically inside of you. So I'm just going to invite anybody who's not really understanding this language or feeling like it's over your head to just hold the intention that you're receiving the frequency of what is behind everything that I'm sharing. And that is creating internal shifts that you may or may not even be aware of. I know that's something that kind of gets people coming back more and more again, is I hear from people, if they just can hear my voice, it starts to shift something internally, even again, if I were speaking gibberish. So hopefully that helps. Okay. If my value in consciousness telling me any service should be affordable to all, especially as most of the people I work with and know are not wealthy, work in nonprofits, theater, I won't be homeless, I live a comfortable life, but am I missing out on making more money? My energy level is 4. Awesome, I love this question. So here's the thing, we use our energy to, so I think I already covered in both ways with affluent versus low socioeconomic status. I think we might have covered it, but I do want to say that affordable to all. So I'd like for you to tune into your true capacity, because the reality is we are very limited in this human body. We need a third of our life for sleep for a reason. We don't have the capacity to help everybody. And so this is where your own refinement process is really crucial. Again, knowing that energetically, it's using your energy to call forward anybody that's in that space that has a level of readiness. Okay, how am I landing this? Yeah, it really feels like, first and foremost, I want to make it affordable for all. There's no way for you to serve all of the people in that market. It's physically impossible. In the spirit realm, in our God self realm, yeah, we can impact all. So what I want you to think about is the unseen impact that can happen. So first and foremost, your capacity. How many people do you actually have the capacity to serve? How many people actually still feels nourishing to you and not depleting to you, so that you're not going into level 4 help serve energy that then tanks into level 1, which then compromises your ability to serve anybody. And so really there, I want you to think about your capacity. The other thing I want you to think about is where you are potentially with your level 4 overtaking responsibility, over caring, overcompensating, over empathizing, as opposed to mirroring their own power. Where maybe there's some pity or some needing to savior complex, or there's something in that. And it's very common with a lot of level 4 energy, and it's super sneaky. But that's going to create a whole nother realm of what type of people you're attracting into your field. And you're going to find that pretty much nobody can afford it because their soul actually can't afford you overtaking responsibility for what is theirs to claim. Good. I'm glad this is resonating and hitting. Yeah, so those are the couple places that I'd start is what if you started seeing your potential clients as the power sources that they are, and what if you were the mirror for that and just putting the shoes in front of them to step into or not step into. And that's really what we're doing when we're holding an energetic like this, is we're just saying this is available to you and I believe in you, and if you believe in you, here's the shoes, step in. And if you don't yet, that's okay, I'll still believe in you even when you walk away. So it's pretty much that space there. I love this because this is a great audience energetics question. So you get to support people in the depths of the pain and the darkness and the shadow. And most of you, I find with at least most of my clients, like they really have like such energetic capacity for that dark, deep work, which is so necessary and needed. What I like to say about this with audience energetics, it goes back to, is it a chronic depression and pain perpetuating thing that keeps happening over and over and over again in their life? Meaning like steeped victim energy that is like probably more necessary for a referral for therapy? Or is it situational? Because we all have really deep, dark, painful experiences. We all are called into contrast in the refinement process. And where our work can happen as a coach and where our value can really come into play is that we're holding people through their refinement process, which is very healing. It's allowing them to step into the next version of themselves that creates a new reality. And so when we start talking about like people going through really, let's say, abusive relationships or difficult situations, I see it as two different audiences. There's the audience that it's completely pervasive with. And then again, that's probably not going to be the most appropriate place for coaching or for them being able to even step into or feel worthy of a solution, right? So that's when we start fighting an uphill battle, is when we're focused on those chronic, pervasive kind of lower levels of consciousness. But there's also people that, again, they're just in the refinement process. So it's like things were cruising along. They had a great job. Life was pretty good. And then boom, the rug's pulled out from underneath them. So there's still like a remembering. It's not so ingrained in their consciousness, which is what therapy is for. It's more so like, I've completely lost myself. Everything has fallen apart and I'm in this dire situation. And maybe I'm even feeling depressed. And maybe I am feeling like there's no point to anything. And I'm having a very serious kind of low level 1, level 2, low level consciousness experience. However, there's still something there. There's still a spark. There's still an experience, that still a neural pathway that can be rediscovered. And so it feels like that could be a really interesting place to play and refine that audience energetic, especially when it comes to messaging and niching. The way I deal with the desire to offer value to a wide range of people is to put out free webinars, podcast interviews, and leave it up to the clients to decide if they're ready for more formal. Yes, amen to that. So again, it's recognizing what is your capacity and the reason behind that. And if we are operating from, again, pervasive 4-1 energy, we might be giving it all away all the time to our own detriment. And so it's what is your capacity and how do you want to balance your time for client delivery? This would be your marketing. This would be your visibility. How much do you want to be out there invisible? How much capacity do you have? And this is why I do these masterclasses for that exact same reason, is to facilitate consciousness and energy shifts, even for anybody who wants to come. But I am very clear that 2 times a month is my max. I'm not going to be doing this every week, multiple times a week, because I like to reserve the rest of my energy for the intensive work that I do with my one-on-one clients and my apprenticeships. It's like you're balancing all that energy, but when it's out of balance and we're giving all this stuff away for free to try and reach more people and do all this stuff, and now it's compromised compromising our revenue and our own life and our own nourishment and our own like deep support with one-on-one clients or small group containers, that's out of balance, right? So it's how you want to balance it. What is your advice about staying and remembering most of the time, especially when we are in refining process, to forget needing to remember? So the challenge with when I say remembering and forgetting, you're in refinement and you get lost in the mucky muck, the mud, the void, all the stuff that comes with contrast, the doubt, the fear, all of the challenge that comes during that process, which is what I refer to as the forgotten state. We forget who we are temporarily until we remember. All of the suffering that comes with that is the thinking that we shouldn't be experiencing it, not that we are experiencing it. So I'm going to say that again. All of the suffering that we experience in our refinement or high contrast periods is not because we are experiencing the contrast, it's that because we think we shouldn't be experiencing the contrast. So the second that we accept the contrast and allow for it and not resist it, we remember more quickly. But the more we resist the contrast or catastrophize it as if it means that this is the way it's going to be forever, then we lengthen the contrast and we become more uncomfortable. So the secret to getting through the refinement is acceptance of the refinement, not resistance to the refinement. What gets really interesting is the more that we all start to accept the contrast as the gateway and the portal to the next version of ourselves, and the next version of yourself must create a different reality because we're attracting a different thing in. We get to a place, like as we start to train ourselves in acceptance of contrast, where you can actually experience the contrast and feel excited because now you're like retraining yourself after you've been through the process of accepting contrast enough. Like all the shit hits the fan and you're like, what is happening? Oh my gosh, something is happening. So the boatload of clients leave. This is my like favorite contrast, or tons of like bills coming out of the blue that you're not expecting. Like, oh, I'm up leveling. What is this? What is this? Ah, yay. That's when you really have mastered contrast in a really fun, cool way. And to legitimately feel that, I don't know if you're feeling it in my energy, but I'm in contrast right now. Like I've got a lot of long time, 2 to 3 year clients who are coming to completion, but I know I'm up leveling and it just feels so exciting. And a lot of times, so let me just say about pricing. When you're up leveling your pricing, I'm working with a client on this right now. She's, I don't know, quadrupling her rates and stepping into a super high ticket containers. And it's feeling really wobbly. She's, what do I do with these other clients that aren't ready to step into it? And I really want to bring them along. And how do I move through this? And a lot of times when you're up leveling your pricing and your packaging, you're going to experience going backwards before it slingshots forward. And so again, once you draw that line in the sand and you establish a new sense of worth and a commitment to standing authentically in an alignment with the price point that you are establishing, old clients might fall away. It's all just energy self-organizing. And it might be a little gap in time before new clients start to fill in. And that can create that contrast that's like, oh, but having this client at this price point is better than not having anything. And then your container gets all weak and wobbly. And then you're not able to actually attract in the new price point clients, because remember, there are clients for every single price point. However, if you're holding on to the old version of yourself by hanging on to something that you've outgrown because you're afraid of the time it's going to take for the new version to fully manifest, now you've just maintained the old version. And so it takes trust and it takes courage and it takes like a lot of discomfort for most of us until we really master this process. But it has to be, you have to be willing for it to get worse before it gets better. And this is my favorite analogy. This is the third level of consciousness, which is all about coping, tolerating, settling for less. Things are good enough. That's what we start to do when we start feeling that contrast. And so the analogy I love to use is, it's if you're going to clean out a closet, right now, all of the stuff is just crammed into the closet behind the door. Nobody can see it. People could come into your house and be like, oh my gosh, your house is so clean. And you're like, just don't go into that closet. That's where the truth lies, right? So when we're doing these shifts in our pricing, we're opening up the closet door and everything gets messier before it gets cleaner. It's just, it has to happen that way. And if it's not getting messier before it's getting cleaner, that's going to be your very first clue that you are operating from a lower level of consciousness than your potential is calling you into. I'll share a personal example of how it gets slower before it gets faster. So my business has been consistently for 7 years, 8 years. The lowest my business has ever been is maybe 15,000 a month. The highest is probably about 115,000 a month. So again, that's a huge range, but that's over the 17 years. It's never went below $15,000 a month, and in like many years. And in December, it got down to $4,000 a month. And I was like, whoa, what is going on? I've not seen this or experienced this in over almost a decade of making this amount of money. And again, we choose to keep our lifestyle pretty simple, and I reinvest a lot of money back into my business. But all that to say is, whoa. And I didn't know. Now I can connect the dots looking backwards. Nothing changed in my business. The revenues came back in January, February, March. And now it's just in March that I'm like, whoa, it's time for a new model. And I now can see the next up level. And so that little contrast came 3 months ago before the call for the up level even came. But I knew when it came, something's brewing, something's coming. Some huge next level is on its way to me, because this is bizarre. And not only that, but the expenses that came in, like a broke down car and furnace going out, and $20,000 in expenses plus like significantly less revenue than typically comes through. It was like, shit's moving. What is up? This is going to be so fascinating to see why this is all happening and where I'm being called into. And I'm just now getting glimpses of what I'm being called into, and it's been 3 months. So there's that too. I just wanted to share with all of you, what you're experiencing in this masterclass is the same thing that I see for all of you, like when you choose to be in your fullest expression and not hold anything back. And there is no underlying proving, I need to prove this or I need to prove that. I can't say that I only made $4,000 in a month because people are going to think I'm a terrible coach, or they're going to think I don't know what I'm talking about and I teach business. Like, you see all of the little voices that come in and have us start diluting our message and diluting the truth that wants to be expressed through us. That's one space that we all get to step into more and more self-worth and self-acceptance and self-acknowledgement. And that's when your field becomes impenetrable by needy clients, boring clients coming from lack, clients who, like, that's a part of energy self-organizing through the own personal work that we're all doing. Thank you all so much for being here, for participating, for being present, to get your little plug-in and dose of energy and reframing and remembering to help you really go out and create the impact and the financial abundance that you really desire in this world. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.